The Dawnbreakers, Nabil's narrative, recorded for the handicapped, tape 3. He exemplified by his life and glorious martyrdom the truth of this tradition. Whoso seeketh me shall find me. Whoso findeth me shall be drawn towards me. Whoso draweth nigh unto me shall love me. Whoso loveth me, him shall I also love. He who is beloved of me, him shall I slay. He who is slain by me, I myself shall be his ransom. The Bab, whose name was Syed Ali Muhammad, was born in the city of Shiraz on the first day of Muharram in the year AH 1235, 20th of October AD 1819. He belonged to a house which was renowned for its nobility, and which traced its origin to Muhammad himself. The date of his birth confirmed the truth of the prophecy traditionally attributed to the Imam Ali. I am 2 years younger than my Lord. 25 years, 4 months and 4 days had elapsed since the day of his birth, when he declared his mission. In his early childhood he lost his father, Syed Muhammad Riza, a man who was known throughout the province of Fars for his piety and virtue, and was held in high esteem and honor. Both his father and his mother were descended of the Prophet. Both were loved and respected by the people. He was reared by his maternal uncle, Haji Mirza Syed Ali, a martyr to the faith, who placed him, while still a child, under the care of a tutor named Sheikh Abid. A footnote says, according to Mirza Abul Fazl, manuscript, page 41, the Bab was 6 or 7 years of age when he entered the school of Sheikh Abid. The school was known by the name of Kaviye Auliya. The Bab remained 5 years at that school, where he was taught the rudiments of Persian. The Bab, though not inclined to study, submitted to his uncle's will and directions. Sheikh Abid, known by his pupils as Sheikhuna, was a man of piety and learning. He had been a disciple of both Sheikh Ahmad and Syed Kazim. One day, he related, I asked the Bab to recite the opening words of the Quran, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. He hesitated, pleading that unless he were told what these words signified, he would in no wise attempt to pronounce them. I pretended not to know their meaning. I know what these words signify, observed my pupil. By your leave, I will explain them. He spoke with such knowledge and fluency that I was struck with amazement. He expounded the meaning of Allah, of Rahman and Rahim, in terms such as I had neither read nor heard. The sweetness of his utterance still lingers in my memory. I felt impelled to take him back to his uncle and to deliver unto his hands the trust he had committed to my care. I determined to tell him how unworthy I felt to teach so remarkable a child. I found his uncle alone in his office. I have brought him back to you, I said, and commit him to your vigilant protection. He is not to be treated as a mere child, for in him I can already discern evidences of that mysterious power which the revelation of the Sahibuz Saman alone can reveal. A footnote says, the Lord of the Age, one of the titles of the promised Qaim. It is incumbent upon you to surround him with your most loving care. Keep him in your house, for he verily stands in no need of teachers such as I. Haji Mirza Syed Ali sternly rebuked the Bab. Have you forgotten my instructions, he said. Have I not already admonished you to follow the example of your fellow pupils, to observe silence, and to listen attentively to every word spoken by your teacher? Having obtained his promise to abide faithfully by his instructions, he bade the Bab return to his school. The soul of that child could not, however, be restrained by the stern admonitions of his uncle. No discipline could repress the flow of his intuitive knowledge. Day after day he continued to manifest such remarkable evidences of superhuman wisdom as I am powerless to recount. At last his uncle was induced to take him away from the school of Sheikh Abid, and to associate him with himself in his own profession. There, too, he revealed signs of a power and greatness that few could approach and none could rival. Some years later the Bab was united in wedlock with the sister of Mirza Syed Hassan and Mirza Abul Qasim. A footnote says, the Bab refers to her in his commentary on the Surah of Joseph, Surah of Qarabat. The following is A. L. M. Nicholas's translation of the passage in question. In truth, I have become betrothed before the throne of God with Sarah, that is to say, the dearly beloved, because dearly beloved is derived from dearly beloved. The dearly beloved is Muhammad, which signifies that Sarah was a seed. In truth, I have taken the angels of heaven and those who dwell in paradise as witness of our betrothal. Know that the benevolence of the dhikr sublime is great, O dearly beloved, because it is the benevolence which comes from God the beloved. Thou art not like other women, if thou obeyest God with regard to the dhikr sublime. Know the great truth of the holy word, and glory within thyself that thou art seated with the friend who is the favourite of the Most High God. Truly the glory comes to thee from God the wise. Be patient in the command which comes from God concerning the Bab and his family. Verily thy son Ahmad has a refuge in the blessed heaven close to the great Fatimi. The child which resulted from this union he named Ahmad, of which a footnote says, the Bab refers to his son in his commentary on the Surah of Joseph. The following is A. L. M. Nicholas's translation. In truth, thy son Ahmad has a refuge in the blessed paradise near to the great Fatimi, the Surah of Karabat. Glory be to God, who in truth has given to the delight of the eyes in her youth a son who is named Ahmad. Verily, we have reared this child toward God. Surah of Abd. Preface to A. L. M. Nicholas's translation of the Persian Bayan, Volume 2, page 11. Ahmad died in the year AH 1259, AD 1843, the year preceding the declaration of the faith of the Bab. The father did not lament his loss. He consecrated his death by words such as these: O God, my God, would that 1,000 Ishmaels were given me, this Abraham of thine, that I might have offered them each and all as a loving sacrifice unto thee. O my beloved, my heart's desire, the sacrifice of this Ahmad, whom thy servant Ali Muhammad hath offered up on the altar of thy love, can never suffice to quench the flame of longing in his heart. Not until he immolates his own heart at thy feet, not until his whole body falls a victim to the cruelest tyranny in thy path, not until his breast is made a target for countless darts for thy sake, will the tumult of his soul be stilled. O my God, my only desire, grant that the sacrifice of my son, my only son, may be acceptable unto thee. Grant that it be a prelude to the sacrifice of my own, my entire self, in the path of thy good pleasure. Endue with thy grace my life-blood which I yearn to shed in thy path. Cause it to water and nourish the seed of thy faith. Endow it with thy celestial potency, that this infant seed of God may soon germinate in the hearts of men, that it may thrive and prosper, that it may grow to become a mighty tree, beneath the shadow of which all the peoples and kindreds of the earth may gather. Answer thou my prayer, O God, and fulfill my most cherished desire. Thou art verily the Almighty, the All-Bountiful. A footnote to this says, he left Shiraz for Bushire at the age of 17 and remained there for 5 years engaged in commercial pursuits. During this time he won the esteem of all the merchants with whom he was brought in contact by his integrity and piety. He was extremely attentive to his religious duties and gave away large sums to charity. On one occasion he gave 72 mans, then about £22, to a poor neighbour. Appendix 2 of the Tariq-i-Jadid, Haji Mirza Jani's history, pages 343 to 344. The days which the Bab devoted to commercial pursuits were mostly spent in Bushire. The oppressive heat of the summer did not deter him from devoting each Friday several hours to continuous worship upon the roof of his house. Though exposed to the fierce rays of the noontide sun, he, turning his heart to his beloved, continued to commune with him, unmindful of the intensity of the heat and oblivious of the world around him. From early dawn till sunrise, and from midday till late in the afternoon, he dedicated his time to meditation and pious worship. Turning his gaze towards the north, in the direction of Tehran, he, at every break of day, greeted with a heart overflowing with love and joy the rising sun, which to him was a sign and symbol of that day-star of truth that was soon to dawn upon the world. As a lover who beholds the face of his beloved, he gazed upon the rising orb with steadfastness and longing. He seemed to be addressing, in mystic language, that shining luminary, and to be entrusting it with his message of yearning and love to his concealed beloved. With such transports of delight, he greeted its beaming rays, that the heedless and ignorant around him thought him to be enamored with the sun itself. I have heard Haji Syed Javad-i Kabelai recount the following. Whilst journeying to India, I passed through Bushir. As I was already acquainted with Haji Mirza Syed Ali, I was enabled to meet the Bab on several occasions. Every time I met him, I found him in such a state of humility and lowliness as words fail me to describe. His downcast eyes, his extreme courtesy, and the serene expression on his face made an indelible impression upon my soul. I often heard those who were closely associated with him testify to the purity of his character, to the charm of his manners, to his self-effacement, to his high integrity, and to his extreme devotion to God. A certain man confided to his care a trust, requesting him to dispose of it at a fixed price. When the Bab sent him the value of that article, the man found that the sum which he had been offered considerably exceeded the limit which he had fixed. He immediately wrote to the Bab, requesting him to explain the reason. The Bab replied, "What I have sent you is entirely your due. There is not a single farthing in excess of what is your right. There was a time when the trust you had delivered to me had attained this value. Failing to sell it at that price, I now feel it my duty to offer you the whole of that sum." However much the Bab's client entreated him to receive back the sum in excess, the Bab persisted in refusing. With what assiduous care he attended those gatherings at which the virtues of the Sayyidush Shuhada, the Imam Hussein, were being extolled. With what attention he listened to the chanting of the eulogies. What tenderness and devotion he showed at those scenes of lamentation and prayer. Tears rained from his eyes as his trembling lips murmured words of prayer and praise. How compelling was his dignity, how tender the sentiments which his countenance inspired. As to those whose supreme privilege it was to be enrolled by the Bab in the book of his revelation as his chosen letters of the living, their names are as follows. Mullah Hussein I Bushrui, Muhammad Hassan, his brother, Muhammad Bakir, his nephew, Mullah Ali I Bastami, Mullah Khuda Baksh I Kuchani, later named Mullah Ali, Mullah Hassan I Bashistani, Syed Hussein I Yazdi, Mirza Muhammad Raudir Khan I Yazdi, Syed I Hindi, Mullah Mahmud I Kui, Mullah Jalil I Urumi, Mullah Ahmad I Abdal I Maraghi, Mullah Bakir I Tabrizi, Mullah Yusuf I Ardebili, Mirza Hadi, son of Mullah Abdul Wahab I Qazvini, Mirza Muhammad Ali I Qazvini, Tahiri, Qudus. There is a footnote. According to the Memorials of the Faithful, pages 291 to 8, Tahiri had 2 sons and 1 daughter, none of whom recognized the truth of the cause. Such was the degree of her knowledge and attainments that her father, Haji Mullah Sali, often expressed his regret in the following terms. Would that she had been a boy, for he would have shed illumination upon my household and would have succeeded me. She became acquainted with the writings of Sheikh Ahmad while staying in the home of her cousin Mullah Javad, from whose library she borrowed these books and took them over to her home. Her father raised violent objections to her action and, in his heated discussions with her, denounced and criticized the teachings of Sheikh Ahmad. Tahiri refused to heed the counsels of her father and engaged in secret correspondence with Syed Kazim, who conferred upon her the name of Qurratul Ain. The title Tahiri was first associated with her name while she was staying in Badasht, and was subsequently approved by the Bab. From Qazvin she left for Karbala, hoping to meet Sayyid Kazim, but arrived too late, the Sayyid having passed away 10 days before her arrival. She joined the companions of the departed leader and spent her time in prayer and meditation, eagerly expecting the appearance of him whose advent Sayyid Kazim had foretold. Whilst in that city she dreamed a dream. A youth, a Sayyid, wearing a black cloak and a green turban, appeared to her in the heavens, who with upraised hands was reciting certain verses, one of which she noted down in her book. She awoke from her dream greatly impressed by her strange experience. When, later on, a copy of the Ahsanul Qisas, the Bab's commentary on the Surah of Joseph, reached her, she, to her intense delight, discovered that same verse which she had heard in her dream in that book. That discovery assured her of the truth of the message which the author of that work had proclaimed. She herself undertook the utmost effort for its spread and interpretation. For 3 months her house in Karbala was besieged by the guards, whom the governor had appointed to act and prevent her from associating with the people. From Karbala she proceeded to Baghdad, and lived for a time in the house of Sheikh Mohammed-e-Shibril, from which place she transferred her residence to another quarter, and was eventually taken to the home of the Mufti, where she stayed for about 3 months. These all, the letters of the living that is, with the single exception of Tahiri, attained the presence of the Bab, and were personally invested by him with the distinction of this rank. It was she who, having learned of the intended departure of her sister's husband, Mirza Muhammad Ali from Qazvin, entrusted him with a sealed letter, requesting that he deliver it to the promised one, whom she said he was sure to meet in the course of his journey. "Say to him from me," she added, "the effulgence of thy face flashed forth, and the rays of thy visage arose on high. Then speak the word, 'Am I not your Lord?' and 'Thou art, thou art,' we will all reply." Mirza Muhammad Ali eventually met and recognized the Bab, and conveyed to him both the letter and the message of Tahiri. The Bab forthwith declared her one of the letters of the living. Her father, Haji Mullah Salih-e Qazvini, and his brother Mullah Taqi were both mujtahids of great renown, were skilled in the traditions of Muslim law, and were universally respected by the people of Tehran, Qazvin, and other leading cities of Persia. She was married to Mullah Muhammad, son of Mullah Taqi, her uncle, whom the Shias styled Shahid-e Thalith. There is a footnote, the third martyr. Although her family belonged to the Bala Sari, Tahiri alone showed from the very beginning a marked sympathy and devotion to Sayyid Kazim. As an evidence of her personal admiration for him, she wrote an apology in defense and justification of the teachings of Sheikh Ahmad and presented it to him. To this she soon received a reply, couched in the most affectionate terms in the opening passages of which the Sayyid thus addressed her. "O thou who art the solace of mine eyes, Ya Kurat-i Aini, and joy of my heart." Ever since that time she has been known as Kuratul Ain. After the historic gathering of Badasht, a number of those who attended were so amazed at the fearlessness and outspoken language of that heroine that they felt it their duty to acquaint the Bab with the character of her startling and unprecedented behavior. They strove to tarnish the purity of her name. To their accusations the Bab replied, "What am I to say regarding her, whom the tongue of power and glory has named Tahiri, the pure one?" These words proved sufficient to silence those who had endeavored to undermine her position. From that time onwards she was designated by the believers as Tahiri. A word should now be said in explanation of the term Balasari. Sheikh Ahmad and Sayyid Kazim, as well as their followers, when visiting the shrine of the Imam Hussein in Karbala, invariably occupied as a mark of reverence the lower end of the sepulchre. They never advanced beyond it, whereas other worshippers, the Balasari, recited their prayers in the upper section of that shrine. The Sheikhis, believing, as they did, that every true believer lives both in this world and in the next, felt it unseemly and improper to step beyond the limits of the lower sections of the shrine of the Imam Hussein, who in their eyes was the very incarnation of the most perfect believer. Mullah Hussein, who anticipated being the chosen companion of the Bab during his pilgrimage to Mecca and Medina, was, as soon as the latter decided to depart from Shiraz, summoned to the presence of his master, who gave him the following instructions. The days of our companionship are approaching their end. My covenant with you is now accomplished. Gird up the loins of endeavour and arise to diffuse my cause. Be not dismayed at the sight of the degeneracy and perversity of this generation, for the Lord of the covenant shall assuredly assist you. Verily he shall surround you with his loving protection, and shall lead you from victory to victory, even as the cloud that rains its bounty upon the earth traverse the land from end to end, and shower upon its people the blessings which the Almighty in his mercy has deigned to confer upon you. Forbear with the ulamas, and resign yourself to the will of God. Raise the cry, awake, awake, for lo, the gate is open, and the morning light is shedding its radiance upon all mankind. The promised one is made manifest. Prepare the way for him, O people of the earth. Deprive not yourselves of its redeeming grace, nor close your eyes to its effulgent glory. Those whom you find receptive to your call, share with them the epistles and tablets we have revealed for you, that perchance these wondrous words may cause them to turn away from the sloth of heedlessness and soar into the realm of the divine presence. In this pilgrimage, upon which we are soon to embark, we have chosen Qudus as our companion. We have left you behind to face the onslaught of a fierce and relentless enemy. Rest assured, however, that a bounty unspeakably glorious shall be conferred upon you. Follow the course of your journey towards the north, and visit on your way Isfahan, Kashan, Kum, and Tehran. Beseech Almighty Providence that he may graciously enable you to attain in that capital the seat of true sovereignty, and to enter the mansion of the Beloved. A secret lies hidden in that city. When made manifest, it shall turn the earth into paradise. My hope is that you may partake of its grace and recognize its splendor. From Tehran, proceed to Khorasan, and there proclaim anew the call. From thence, return to Najaf and Kabila, and there await the summons of your Lord. Be assured that the high mission for which you have been created will, in its entirety, be accomplished by you. Until you have consummated your work, if all the darts of an unbelieving world be directed against you, they will be powerless to hurt a single hair of your head. All things are imprisoned within his grasp. He verily is the Almighty, the all-subduing. The Bab then summoned to his presence Mullah Ali Bastami, and addressed to him words of cheer and loving kindness. He instructed him to proceed directly to Najaf and Kabila, alluded to the severe trials and afflictions that would befall him, and enjoined him to be steadfast till the end. Your faith, he told him, must be immovable as the rock, must weather every storm and survive every calamity. Suffer not the denunciations of the foolish and the calumnies of the clergy to afflict you, or to turn you from your purpose. For you are called to partake of the celestial banquet prepared for you in the immortal realm. You are the first to leave the house of God, and to suffer for its sake. If you be slain in his path, remember that great will be your reward, and goodly the gift which will be bestowed upon you. No sooner were these words uttered than Mullah Ali arose from his seat and set out to prosecute his mission. At about a farsang's distance from Shiraz, he was overtaken by a youth who, flushed with excitement, impatiently asked to speak to him. His name was Abdul Wahab. I beseech you, he tearfully entreated Mullah Ali, to allow me to accompany you on your journey. Perplexities oppress my heart. I pray you to guide my steps in the way of truth. Last night in my dream I heard the crier announce in the market street of Shiraz the appearance of the Imam Ali, the commander of the faithful. He called to the multitude, "Arise and seek him. Behold, he plucks out of the burning fire charters of liberty and is distributing them to the people. Hasten to him, for whoever receives them from his hands will be secure from penal suffering, and whoever fails to obtain them from him will be bereft of the blessings of paradise. Immediately I heard the voice of the crier. I arose and, abandoning my shop, ran across the market street of Vakil to a place where my eyes beheld you standing and distributing those same charters to the people. To everyone who approached to receive them from your hands, you would whisper in his ear a few words which instantly caused him to flee in consternation and exclaim, "Woe betide me, for I am deprived of the blessings of Ali and his kindred. Ah, miserable me, that I am accounted amongst the outcast and fallen." I awoke from my dream, and, immersed in an ocean of thought, regained my shop. Suddenly I saw you pass, accompanied by a man who wore a turban, and who was conversing with you. I sprang from my seat, and, impelled by a power which I could not repress, ran to overtake you. To my utter amazement, I found you standing upon the very site which I had witnessed in my dream, engaged in the recital of traditions and verses. Standing aside at a distance, I kept watching you, wholly unobserved by you and your friend. I heard the man whom you were addressing impetuously protest, "Easier is it for me to be devoured by the flames of hell than to acknowledge the truth of your words, the weight of which mountains are unable to sustain." To his contemptuous rejection, he returned this answer: "Were all the universe to repudiate his truth, it could never tarnish the unsullied purity of his robe and grandeur." Departing from him, you directed your steps towards the gate of Kaziran. I continued to follow you until I reached this place. Mullah Ali tried to appease his troubled heart, and to persuade him to return to his shop and resume his daily work. "Your association with me," he urged, "would involve me in difficulties. Return to Shiraz and rest assured, for you are accounted of the people of salvation. Far be it from the justice of God to withhold from so ardent and devoted a seeker the cup of his grace, or to deprive a soul so athirst from the billowing ocean of his revelation." The words of Mullah Ali proved of no avail. The more he insisted upon the return of Abdul Wahhab, the louder grew his lamentation and weeping. Mullah Ali finally felt compelled to comply with his wish, resigning himself to the will of God. Haji Abdul Majid, the father of Abdul Wahhab, has often been heard to recount, with his eyes filled with tears, this story. "How deeply," he said, "I regret the deed I committed. Pray that God may grant me the remission of my sin. I was one among the favored in the court of the sons of the Farman Farma, the governor of the province of Fars. Such was my position that none dared to oppose or harm me. No one questioned my authority or ventured to interfere with my freedom. Immediately I heard that my son Abdul Wahhab had forsaken his shop and left the city. I ran out in the direction of the Kaziran gate to overtake him, armed with a club with which I intended to beat him. I inquired as to the road he had taken. I was told that a man wearing a turban had just crossed the street, and that my son was seen following him. They seemed to have agreed to leave the city together. This excited my anger and indignation. How could I tolerate, I thought to myself, such unseemly behavior on the part of my son, I, who already hold so privileged a position in the court of the sons of the Farman Farma? Nothing but the severest chastisement, I felt, could wipe away the effect of my son's disgraceful conduct. I continued my search until I reached them. Seized with a savage fury, I inflicted upon Mullah Ali unspeakable injuries. For the strokes that fell heavily upon him, he, with extraordinary serenity, returned this answer: "Stay your hand, O Abdul Majid, for the eye of God is observing you. I take him as my witness that I am in no wise responsible for the conduct of your son. I mind not the tortures you inflict upon me, for I stand prepared for the most grievous afflictions in the path I have chosen to follow. Your injuries, compared to what is destined to befall me in future, are as a drop compared to the ocean. Verily I say, you shall survive me, and will come to recognize my innocence. Great will then be your remorse, and deep your sorrow." Scorning his remarks and heedless of his appeal, I continued to beat him until I was exhausted. Silently and heroically he endured this most undeserved chastisement at my hands. Finally, I ordered my son to follow me and left Mullah Ali to himself. On our way back to Shiraz, my son related to me the dream he had dreamt. A feeling of profound regret gradually seized me. The blamelessness of Mullah Ali was vindicated in my eyes, and the memory of my cruelty to him continued long to oppress my soul. Its bitterness lingered in my heart until the time when I felt obliged to transfer my residence from Shiraz to Baghdad. From Baghdad I moved to Kazimain, where Abdul Wahab established his business. A strange mystery brooded over his youthful face. He seemed to be concealing from me a secret which appeared to have transformed his life. And when, in the year AH 1267, AD 1850 to 51, Baha'u'llah journeyed to Iraq and visited Kazimain, Abdul-Baha fell immediately under the spell of his charm and pledged his undying devotion to him. A few years later, when my son had suffered martyrdom in Tehran, and Baha'u'llah had been exiled to Baghdad, he, with infinite loving kindness and mercy, awakened me from the sleep of heedlessness, and himself taught me the message of the new day, washing away with the waters of divine forgiveness the stains of that cruel act. This episode marks the first affliction which befell a disciple of the Bab after the declaration of his mission. Mullah Ali realized from this experience how steep and thorny was the path leading to his eventual attainment of the promise given him by his master. Wholly resigned to his will, and prepared to shed his life blood for his cause, he resumed his journey until he arrived at Najaf. In the presence of Sheikh Mohammed Hassan, one of the most celebrated ecclesiastics of Shia Islam, and in the face of a distinguished company of his disciples, Mullah Ali announced fearlessly the manifestation of the Bab, the gate whose advent they were eagerly awaiting. His proof, he declared, is his word. His testimony none other than the testimony with which Islam seeks to vindicate its truth. From the pen of this unschooled Hashemite youth of Persia there have streamed, within the space of 48 hours, as great a number of verses, of prayers, of homilies, and scientific treatises as would equal in volume the whole of the Koran, which it took Muhammad, the prophet of God, 23 years to reveal. That proud and fanatic leader, instead of welcoming in an age of darkness and prejudice these life-giving evidences of a new-born revelation, forthwith pronounced Mullah Ali a heretic and expelled him from the assembly. His disciples and followers, even the sheikhs, who already testified to Mullah Ali's piety, sincerity, and learning, endorsed unhesitatingly the judgment against him. The disciples of Sheikh Mohammed Hassan, joining hands with their adversaries, heaped upon him untold indignities. They eventually delivered him, his hands bound in chains, to an official of the Ottoman government, arraigning him as a wrecker of Islam, a calumniator of the Prophet, an instigator of mischief, a disgrace to the faith, and worthy of the penalty of death. He was taken to Baghdad under the escort of government officials and was cast into prison by the governor of that city. Haji Hashim, surnamed Attar, a prominent merchant who was well versed in the scriptures of Islam, recounted the following. I was present at Government House on one occasion when Mullah Ali was summoned to the presence of the assembled notables and government officials of that city. He was publicly accused of being an infidel, an abrogator of the laws of Islam, and a repudiator of its rituals and accepted standards. When his alleged offences and misdeeds had been enumerated, the Mufti, the chief exponent of the law of Islam in that city, turned to him and said, "O enemy of God!" As I was occupying a seat beside the Mufti, I whispered in his ear, "You are as yet unacquainted with this unfortunate stranger. Why address him in such terms? Do you not realize that such words as you have addressed to him will excite the anger of the populace against him? It behooves you to disregard the unsupported charges these busybodies have brought against him, to question him yourself, and to judge him according to the accepted standards of justice inculcated by the faith of Islam." The Mufti was sore displeased, arose from his seat, and left the gathering. Mullah Ali was again thrown into prison. A few days later, I inquired about him, hoping to achieve his deliverance. I was informed that, on the night of that same day, he had been deported to Constantinople. I made further inquiries, and endeavoured to find out what eventually befell him. I could not, however, ascertain the truth. A few believed that, on his way to Constantinople, he had fallen ill and died. Others maintained that he had suffered martyrdom. Whatever his end, Mullah Ali had by his life and death earned the immortal distinction of having been the first sufferer in the path of this new faith of God, the first to have laid down his life as an offering on the altar of sacrifice. Having sent forth Mullah Ali on his mission, the Bab summoned to his presence the remaining letters of the living, and to each severally he gave a special command and appointed a special task. He addressed to them these parting words: O my beloved friends, you are the bearers of the name of God in this day. You have been chosen as the repositories of his mystery. It behoves each one of you to manifest the attributes of God and to exemplify by your deeds and words the signs of his righteousness, his power and glory. The very members of your body must bear witness to the loftiness of your purpose, the integrity of your life, the reality of your faith, and the exalted character of your devotion. For verily I say, this is the day spoken of by God in his book, the Koran. On that day will we set a seal upon their mouths, yet shall their hands speak unto us, and their feet shall bear witness to that which they shall have done. Ponder the words of Jesus addressed to his disciples as he sent them forth to propagate the cause of God. In words such as these, he bade them arise and fulfill their mission. Ye are even as the fire which in the darkness of the night has been kindled upon the mountain top. Let your light shine before the eyes of men. Such must be the purity of your character and the degree of your renunciation, that the people of the earth may through you recognize and be drawn closer to the Heavenly Father, who is the source of purity and grace. For none has seen the Father who is in heaven. You who are his spiritual children must by your deeds exemplify his virtues and witness to his glory. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost its savour, wherewith shall it be salted? Such must be the degree of your detachment, that in whatever city you enter to proclaim and teach the cause of God, you should in no wise expect either meat or reward from its people. Nay, when you depart out of that city, you should shake the dust from off your feet. As you have entered it pure and undefiled, so must you depart from that city. For verily I say, the Heavenly Father is ever with you and keeps watch over you. If you be faithful to him, he will assuredly deliver into your hands all the treasures of the earth, and it will exalt you above all the rulers and kings of the world. O my letters, verily I say, immensely exalted is this day above the days of the apostles of old. Nay, immeasurable is the difference. You are the witnesses of the dawn of the promised day of God. You are the partakers of the mystic chalice of his revelation. Gird up the loins of endeavour, and be mindful of the words of God as revealed in his book. Lo, the Lord thy God is come, and with him is the company of his angels arrayed before him. Purge your hearts of worldly desires, and let angelic virtues be your adorning. Strive that by your deeds you may bear witness to the truth of these words of God, and beware lest by turning back he may change you for another people, who shall not be your like, and who shall take from you the kingdom of God. The days when idol worship was deemed sufficient are ended. The time is come when naught but the purest motive, supported by deeds of stainless purity, can ascend to the throne of the Most High, and be acceptable unto him. The good word riseth up unto him, and the righteous deed will cause it to be exalted before him. You are the lowly, of whom God has thus spoken in his book. And we desire to show favour to those who were brought low in the land, and to make them spiritual leaders among men, and to make them our heirs. You have been called to this station. You will attain to it only if you arise to trample beneath your feet every earthly desire, and endeavour to become those honoured servants of his who speak not till he hath spoken, and who do his bidding. You are the first letters that have been generated from the primal point. That is one of the Bab's titles. The first springs that have welled out of the source of this revelation. Beseech the Lord your God to grant that no earthly entanglements, no worldly affections, no ephemeral pursuits may tarnish the purity or embitter the sweetness of that grace which flows through you. I am preparing you for the advent of a mighty day. Exert your utmost endeavor that in the world to come I, who am now instructing you, may, before the mercy seat of God, rejoice in your deeds, and glory in your achievements. The secret of the day that is to come is now concealed. It can neither be divulged nor estimated. The newly born babe of that day excels the wisest and most venerable men of this time. The lowliest and most unlearned of that period shall surpass in understanding the most erudite and accomplished divines of this age. Scatter throughout the length and breadth of this land, and with steadfast feet and sanctified hearts prepare the way for his coming. Heed not your weaknesses and frailty. Fix your gaze upon the invincible power of the Lord your God, the Almighty. Has he not in past days caused Abraham, in spite of his seeming helplessness, to triumph over the forces of Nimrod? Has he not enabled Moses, whose staff was his only companion, to vanquish Pharaoh and his hosts? Has he not established the ascendancy of Jesus, poor and lowly as he was in the eyes of men, over the combined forces of the Jewish people? Has he not subjected the barbarous and militant tribes of Arabia to the holy and transforming discipline of Muhammad his prophet? Arise in his name, put your trust wholly in him, and be assured of ultimate victory. There is a footnote. The Bab refers to the letters of the living in the Persian Bayan, Vahid 1, Bab 2, in the following terms. All of these formed the name of the living one, for these are the names that are the nearest to God. The others are guided by their clear and significant actions, for God began the creation of the Bayan through them, and it is to them that the creation of the Bayan will again return. They are the lights which in the past have eternally prostrated themselves and will prostrate themselves eternally in the future before the celestial throne. Persian Bayan, Volume 1, pages 24 to 25.